Well, hello, welcome to this video. This is chapter 13 of the book How and Why Homeschool Math Can Be Vastly Superior to Public School Math. This is Craig Hain, the author of the book and the CEO of Triad Math, and you can learn all about me at my website, craighain.com. And now let's talk about chapter 13. The future of our society. Well, how do you define a great society? Well, here's my definition. A great society is one where all of the members of the society are living productive, happy lives. Very simple. Now, I suppose on a global basis that's never actually happened in the world, although there are certain sub-societies where it has happened. Well, one basis for living a very productive and happy life is to be in a good financial situation for that person and his or her family. And I discussed one way that can be achieved back in chapter 11. Now, there's an interesting concept for a society called tribes, and I use that word because Amy Chua, who's, in my view, a great author, wrote a book very recently called Political Tribes. And I think that's a very, very good way to start analyzing societies and understand what's going on in the world. And I highly recommend Amy's book for that. A tribe is simply a well-defined group of people who share some beliefs and agree on actions that the tribe should take. And a tribe can have both members and guests, and of course most tribes then also have enemies, and those are usually members of other tribes. In fact, two tribes could be friendly to each other and work together, or they can be enemies. Now, all too often you have tribes that are enemies and they actually try to destroy each other. In fact, we're seeing an awful lot of this today in the world we live in. In fact, it's been common throughout human history, as you know, and we see this today in all different parts of the world. There's all kinds of different tribes. Some get along, many are in conflict, and in fact, we see that in the United States today, internally. And I don't need to get into that. This is 2019, and we are having tremendous internal conflicts among lots of different tribe groups. Now, the ultimate conflict between two tribes, of course, is called genocide. And that's where one tribe actually can annihilate another tribe. And that, again, has happened throughout human history. And indeed, it is even happening today, unfortunately. Well, it's unfortunate for the tribe that's being eliminated, isn't it? Now, a large tribe can have various smaller sub-tribes. And some of these sub-tribes might even conflict with each other, but they're still members of a larger tribe, and they owe their allegiance to the larger tribe, so they get along. Sub-tribes within one bigger tribe tend to get along, even if they don't like each other. And again, there's lots of examples throughout history and today. And I could spend, well, Amy Chua wrote a book on it, and you could write a lot more books on it. Now, we are all members of some tribes of varying sizes. I mean, I don't think a human today can exist without being a member of some tribes. And these tribes, of course, change over time. People, humans, enter and depart from these tribes in a wide variety of ways. Birth and death just being one example. So a tribe can have members and it can have guests. Now, members are people that actually consider themselves a member of the tribe, and they share the beliefs of the tribe, and they agree upon the actions that that tribe is going to take. Guests of the tribe may not share the beliefs, but they pretend to. They certainly acknowledge them, and they don't contradict the actions of the tribe, whether they participate or not. Now, I personally have been a guest of many tribes in my life. I'm 80 years old, and I can't even count the number of tribes I've been a guest of. When I was, for example, an undergraduate at Oberlin College, there were lots of different tribes at Oberlin College, and I was guest of many of them. But I've been a member of very few tribes. I rarely share all of the beliefs and agree to all the actions of any given tribe, but I don't contradict them. So that's what a good guest does. And I could spend lots and lots of time talking about lots of tribes I've been a guest of over my life. Now, for most of us, the smallest tribe that we're ever going to be a member of, and perhaps the most important in our life, is our family, and then our extended family, and then our friends. And then, of course, the larger tribes that we find ourselves members of or guests of, this due to our birth, where we're born in the time in history when we're born. As you know, I was born in 1938 in the United States, in Indiana. And so that put me into lots of different tribes that at that time, just by the circumstances of my birth and the location of my birth. And that's true for everybody. Now, as I said, most of us are either members or guests of much larger tribes than just our family. And in fact, I think of society as a collection of all the tribes that exist within a society. So what I'm going to do now in this chapter is I'm going to discuss several tribes that I believe are critical to society's future, both its beliefs and behaviors and its consequences. The first tribe I want to talk about is what I call the U.S. Education Tribe. Education is a big deal in the United States, and it has been ever since our country was born. And the Education Tribe consists of all teachers and all students and all administrators at all different levels. So it's a huge, huge tribe. And of course, people come and go all the time in it, both as members and guests. Most of us have been members of this tribe at some time or other. And many of us still are today. I mean, for example, if you were ever a student, you were a member of the tribe. If you were a teacher, you were a member. If you were an administrator, you were a member. So most of us have been members one way or another. Now, this is a huge, huge tribe that virtually everybody in the United States has been a member of at one time or another. Public schools are a smaller sub-tribe, but a very large sub-tribe. In fact, a lot of times people think of education as being our public school system. But private schools are a smaller sub-tribe. And there's lots of private schools, and of course they are a tribe too. And then homeschoolers are an even smaller sub-tribe of this education tribe. But the homeschooler tribe is growing all the time. It's getting bigger and more robust as we go. And I think it's an extremely important sub-tribe. Now, I would say that the public school tribe and the homeschoolers tribe don't like each other very much. What do you think? In fact, I'm guessing that the public school tribe would like to see the homeschool tribe go away, disappear. And indeed, I think that both tribes work with the government to either achieve it or keep it from happening. These are two very interesting tribes. Now, they're sub-tribes of the whole education tribe. Now, here's my belief. I believe, and you know this from this book's all about it, that the public school math education we have needs to be dramatically and radically reformed in this 21st century that I've explained in this book and particularly in chapter 10. Furthermore, I doubt that this will ever happen just internally for many reasons that I believe are obvious and we've discussed in this book. After all, if you're a member of a tribe and you feed on the tribe and you're part of it, you tend to want to share its beliefs and not want to change it. Now, this has happened throughout history. You can think of all sorts of major tribes that didn't want to change, and then something came along and they had to. Well, here's what I also believe. I think that the homeschooler tribe can adopt a new math education system that's vastly superior to what I've called the standard math curriculum, which is what the public school tribe teaches. And this is because of new 21st century technologies that have only recently come into existence, some as recent as 10 years ago. And these technologies empower what I have called spike pedagogy, which you can learn about in chapter 1, actually. And then there's these new 21st century tools, which make math much easier to learn and much easier to practice. And that's what revolutionizes math education. It's these tools. And obviously that's been a theme throughout this book. And so if you have not read the other chapters, you may want to go read them. For example, the scientific calculator, I think, revolutionizes how we teach workforce math and can do things in ways that the schools are not, public schools are not doing, and it should be done. And then, of course, Wolfram Alpha revolutionizes STEM math, which is very important for our future economy. Now, if this happens, if this homeschool tribe can actually introduce a modern math education system, then I think that this is going to stimulate and force a reformation of public school math education. Because there's going to be an example then. You're going to have data. You're going to see the results of an improved math education system. And eventually the public school system will have to come around to it. And when that happens, I believe that our entire USA society is going to vastly improve. And the question, of course, now is why? If you've read this book, you probably understand why already. But I'll tell you why. Let me just review it for you. I believe that the United States economy is going to improve in a very healthy way when more and more of our citizens can have a financially solid life due to a good technical career. Now, I don't mean everybody, but a significant number. And as I explained in a previous chapter, this is what is empowered by workforce math and by STEM math, which are what can be taught properly with the new system. And then I would ask, do you agree? Now, if you do agree, if you've read the book and if you agree with the book, you agree. If not, you got to ask yourself, why don't you agree? And what would you do? Now, I'll tell you this, I do not judge any economy just by what are called its GDP numbers, its production numbers, or for that matter, its accumulation of physical and intangible assets. I judge an economy by its ability to distribute both wealth creation and wealth consumption widely among its members and their families. That's how I judge an economy. And I believe that this requires a combination of what are called socialistic and capitalistic ideas and concepts and practices. I don't believe that you can have what some people define as pure socialism or what others define as pure capitalism. I think it has to be a combination. Okay. Now, my belief is to a great extent based on my own personal experience. I was very fortunate, as I've explained elsewhere, to have three wonderful math teachers in my life, starting when I was 4 and 5 years old with my Uncle Jack, and then Miss Madonna O'Hare when I was a sophomore in high school, and then Dr. Clint Gass when I was a senior in high school. And these three teachers empowered me to learn math in a way that I never would have learned it otherwise. And that empowered me to create a lot of wealth by helping a whole lot of other people. I've helped thousands and thousands of people improve their lives through the teaching I've done, of Hain training in particular, but other things. And then to distribute this wealth among my many family members and my friends and my associates. And these people are now creating more wealth and distributing it. That's what makes a wonderful society. Now, I would say this. If 1 person in 10 becomes matherate, the way I've defined it in this book, and then economically successful because of their ability to participate in the modern 21st century economy, that's going to go a long way toward creating a wonderful economy and a wonderful society. Because today, 1 person's efforts, if you're properly trained, are greatly amplified by the new technologies. And I said 1 in 10. It might even be 1 in 50 might be adequate to do this. Maybe even 1 in 100 are adequate. If there's 350 million people in this country, 1 in 100 is what? 3.5 million. And if we take our young people today, our workers, and if we create a lot of them, a few million of them, that's going to just revolutionize our economy and our society, make it so much more wonderful. Then the question is, what about the whole world? After all, the United States is only about 5% of the world's human population. Well, I believe that if the United States can create new technologies, which we're doing, for very cost-effective energy, for example, and for material products and for food. And then this can be spread throughout the entire world to everyone's advantage. What if everybody had good food and good material products to live their life with, and cheap energy, which is the basis of it, by the way? Well, if that happens, then I would have hoped this would allow many of the world's tribes that now compete and hurt each other in a lot of different ways to become more tolerant and to get along. I mean, after all, if you've got plenty of food and material goods and happy people, why do you want to fight? Who wants to go to war? What happy person wants to enter into, wants to destroy some other tribe? I think maybe we can achieve world peace if we can create good living conditions for everybody in the world. And I believe our modern technologies can and should empower this. This was not conceivable even a few years ago, but it is today. Now I'll make a point here for you. For better or for worse, the United States has become a world leader in many ways economically. Ever since World War II, we have the world's reserve currency, the U.S. dollar. We basically control the financial system of the world today. And we have the world's most powerful Navy and military. We control the oceans, and we have since World War II. In fact, we have, by the Bretton Woods Agreement, have actually created sort of the world peace such as it is. We've also created a lot of the world's problems. And I don't want to get into all of that, but the United States has done a lot of good and a lot of bad in the world. And you should know all about that from other things that you've read. But here's what I think we can do in the future. I think we can spread material wealth and security throughout the world. Just look at what Bill Gates is doing with the Gates Foundation and the things he's trying to do to help spread material wealth and health and security. But obviously to do this, we've got to do it at home first. We've actually got problems right here in the United States. We have tribes in the United States that are very unhappy. They've not really been able to participate in all of the wonderful things that have been happening. So we got to do it here. Now the question is, if we got to start at home and fix your own house first before you try to fix other people's houses, what can you do? Well, obviously what I believe is that a modern, effective math education program like I've discussed throughout this book can help achieve this in many ways. I think this can help spread material wealth throughout the United States, not just among the so-called elite, but through to everybody. As I said earlier, if 1 in 10 or 20 people can have a successful, financially productive life, and that spreads throughout their family, then that's going to spread throughout our society. Well, that's what I think. That's what this book's been about. So it's up to you now. You're the reader of this book. You need to decide if and how you can participate in this opportunity, if you believe in it. I encourage you to make sure you understand the things in this book and then see who are the people in your life that you can help achieve the things we've been talking about, to achieve a better life. I think everybody can get involved in this. You may not want to learn math yourself, but you know someone that can learn it, and you want to lead them to this and have them read the book, have them understand what they could do. There are a lot of people in this world today in the United States that are very discouraged by math that's come out of the public school system. And they may have dropped out of high school, or they may just have graduated but still not really been able to have any kind of a decent career. That can change for some of them. Not all of them, but it doesn't have to change for all of them. It changes 1 in 10. That's great. Well, that's what this is all about. I believe we can have a great future society. And if we don't do the things that we're capable of doing, obviously our technologies have dangers. We can have a miserable future society. There are a lot of people that are predicting that the world in the future is going to be very bad. You know, there's a lot of negative predictions. I don't agree with that. I think it could be very good. And that's what I'm dedicated my life to and encourage you to. So I'll conclude this chapter by simply saying, well, I pray for all of us that we do what we can do and do it well. And I wish you all very well. I hope you have very productive, happy lives and are members of a tribe that is a very, very peaceful, successful tribe. So this is Dr. Dale Craig Hain, and I'll see you on another video in another chapter. Have a great life.